All right, we're going to get started while you're wrapping up your lunch with our afternoon program. Did you all see the challenge coin that was at each one of your places? Yes? Say no if you didn't see it. Okay, now go look for it, those of you who said no. So on the front of the challenge coin is the seal of the state of Hawaii. This is as a reminder for the majority of you in the room of where you work and the state that we're trying to help transform through technology. On the back, you'll see a very nice symbol, and it says, transforming government at the speed of life. That is your the request from the CIO, from Sunny, to continue to think of Hawaii, but think of transformation. Carry the challenge coin, put it at your desk. As James Lum said, it's going to be a great ball marker for him also on the weekends for his golf match. So please enjoy these. If there are any extras at your table because someone's not there, please leave them. We're going to pick them up and make sure they get distributed to people who are staff and couldn't come into to the lunchtime. So please don't grab tons of extras. That we'd appreciate that. So there's also someone I would like to introduce. We have a special guest who's here with us today. He flew onto the island, I believe, on Tuesday or yesterday. He comes from Kentucky. He's actually a former state CIO, like Sunny is a state CIO, but he's currently the executive director of the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, NASCIO, and is an advocate for the use of information technology at the state level in all 50 states and in Washington, D.C., where NASCIO as an advocate group does a lot of work to help pave the road to getting better procurement terms and things like that from the federal government on how states do their business with federal funds. So please join me in welcoming here with us Mr. Robinson from NASCIO. Please do stand up. So I'd also like to introduce our lunch speaker. Ken Miller is someone that we have worked with for many years. Besides publishing Government Technology Magazine and Public CIO Magazine, we publish Governing Magazine. And Ken is a former state official. He's a consultant. He's an author. He's also a Governing Magazine contributor and co-creator of the Public Great blog at governing.com. So you can follow his work through our publication, through our website. Ken served as the deputy director for the Missouri Department of Revenue, where he transformed the department into one of the few government agencies nationwide to be honored as a state quality award winner. The department also reduced tax refund issuance time, amount of time it took from receipt of a return to the person in the state, the citizen receiving their refund check. They reduced that time by 80%, fastest in the nation, and cut wait times in motor vehicle offices by half. Ken was later named the Director of Performance Improvement for Missouri State Government, where he led award-winning performance measurement initiatives and a series of transformation projects, saving more than $200 million overall. Ken was named one of the country's top change agents by Fast Company magazine and is here today to share a little bit of the work that he's been doing and is going to be doing with you. So please join me in welcoming to the podium Mr. Ken Miller.
Well, mahalo. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. And I'm not just saying that because I spent last week in another tropical paradise, Lithuania. So it is very, very nice to be here. I wanted to start with a question. How many of you in this room have ever seen the TV show Extreme Home Makeover? Just raise your hand. Did you notice how few guys raised their hands? Or if they did, they were like this? Yeah, I don't watch it either. My wife watches it. And I'm just in the room when it's on, and I never cry. I I don't know about you guys, but when they start doing that move that bus, and the whole community's there, and there's the new house, and I'm just bawling like a baby. It gets me. But for those of you who've never seen the show, right, let me try to explain it to you. And there's a reason for this. This is going to be a theme as we go throughout our talk today. I remember the first season that the show was on. I don't know if you guys can remember. I think it's been on about 7 or 8 years before it was finally canceled. But the first season, there was this gentleman whose sister had passed away. And she had 6 kids that he took in and adopted to raise himself. Now, the problem was he only had a 1-bedroom home. So his home did not have the capacity of his heart. And so in came the Extreme Makeover crew, and they made modifications to his home and made some additions here and there, and allowed him to have the capacity to do the good he wanted to do in this world. And again, just waterworks. But that was the first season. Did you see it towards the end of the show? They didn't bother with coming in and making modifications to homes anymore. No, what they would do is they would show up, knock the old house down, and build a brand new house in the same spot. And how long did that take? Does anybody remember? A week. Well, actually, it was an hour, but there was editing and camera tricks. A week. How do you build a house in a week? Have any of you ever built a house? Did it take a week? No. But what I want to share with you today is that the answer to all of the issues we are facing in government are in that show. The question of how do you build a house in a week, the answer to that question will solve every issue you're facing in government right now. Because what are we facing? Right? In my time traveling around, I've been in every state. I've worked with all 50. Same issues keep coming up over and over again in what we're facing. Rising costs, reduced budgets. I shouldn't say that here. Failed IT projects, challenged IT projects, sorry. Sometimes I share with audiences who aren't from IT. Low morale, low customer satisfaction, labor management issues, long lines, huge backlogs. Do you have any of those? Aren't these the things you're trying to solve? Now, in this room, we're talking about how to solve these things with technology. And just so I can make friends right off the bat, my message is simple. Technology is not the answer. Okay. The following comment was not sponsored by a government technology. Technology is not the answer. I'm going to show you why. But on the same side of this, those of you in this room are the answer. Those of you that work with technology are absolutely going to be the ones that fix these issues. Because here's the thing. We keep trying to take on each one of these issues without understanding that they are just symptoms. They are symptoms of the real problem that government faces. And there is really only one. The one problem we face is capacity. Just like the gentleman who adopted 6 kids into a 1-bedroom home, we do not have the capacity to do all the good we want to do in this world. Despite what you hear in the media, government can be a force for good. It is noble work being done by amazing people, but we don't have enough capacity. If we had more capacity, we could serve more people. We could do things quicker. We could solve the issues with customer satisfaction and long lines and backlog. And if we had more capacity, our employees wouldn't be so stressed out, so we wouldn't have morale problems. It all comes back to capacity. We don't have enough. And so the secret, and what we're going to talk about today, is how do we increase capacity? Right? The most precious resource we have is our capacity to do more good. How do we increase capacity? And that's what we're going to talk about. And again, technology is not going to be the answer to that, but you in this room will be the answer. Okay? So keeping with that theme, I thought we would talk about something that my wife can attest I know nothing about, which is plumbing. In fact, I know so little about plumbing that I've been traveling around for about a year and a half since the book came out, using this pipe as an example to talk about plumbing. And you'll see here in a second, I talk a lot about plumbing and water flow and pipes and stuff. And I've been carrying this thing around. And I was doing a presentation up in New York to an audience. It was about 900 people. And one of the guys finally stopped me and said, "Hey, you realize that's a gas pipe, don't you?" No. Thanks for pointing that out in front of 900 people. So I don't know a whole lot about plumbing in the real world, but in the abstract, as it applies to how do we increase government's capacity to do more good, I'm going to tell you the answer to it all is in the plumbing. So however you conceive of the work of government, I want you to think about it for a minute as plumbing, as a set of pipes. So again, if you're in revenue, think about tax refunds or audits. If we're in transportation, we can be talking about inspections, bridge repairs. If we're in human services, we want to think about child abuse investigations, connecting families with food resources, registering them for health care. For an environmental, we're talking about permits, inspections. However you want to conceive of your work, I want you to think about it as a set of pipes. So on one end is the demand. So customers are coming to your agency or your process. They're coming to you because they need something. So in they come this way. Maybe they need a contract and you work in procurement. They're going to travel through your pipe, and then the customer is going to come out the other end, hopefully with whatever it is they came for. Okay? Your work, the work of government, is the pipe, and the customers are traveling through it. Now, if you're with me on this picture, that this is government, you can also understand what's been happening to us for the last 6 or 7 years, which is somebody cranked the faucet wide open, right? The demand for government, especially, where are my human service folks? Show of hands, where folks that work in anything related to healthcare, housing, food, Medicaid. Increase water of 40, 50, 70% more people coming into our agencies. So at the same time we have over 40% more water coming into our pipes, what's happening to the size of our pipes? They either stay the same or they're getting smaller. Did you guys go through budget cuts at all? Right? Across the country, 10, 15, 20% reduction in force. So at the same time that people have been coming to government for help, we've been shrinking our capacity to help them. Now again, I'm not great at plumbing, but when you try to cram 40% more water through pipes that are 20% smaller, what do you get? Yeah, pressure. Pressure. Which is what all of you are experiencing today. Pressure. You feel it, your employees feel it, the customers feel it, elected officials feel it. Everybody feels this intense pressure because we have more people coming in than we have resources to help them. It's a capacity issue. So again, if you're feeling the pressure and you understand 40% more water, 20% smaller pipes, you also understand we've only got 2 ways to fix this. Right? The first thing we could do is just turn off the faucet. That work? Can you guys just go back to your office and put up a sign that says, you know what, we're full? No. In government, we don't get that option. To the crowd that says you should run government like a business, in business they can pick and choose who they serve. And they can turn off the faucet. We don't have that option. So the water just keeps coming. All right, well, if we can't turn off the faucet, then let's just add more capacity. Let's add more people. Can you guys add more people? No, never. This is the new normal. This is as big as we're going to be for a long time. Right? We can't add more people. So we can't get rid of the customers. We can't add more people. What on earth can we do? That's how it feels. Hopeless. All we have left really is prayer. So if you would just take the hand of the person next to you, and we'll just lead you in a short little. No, I'm not a licensed plumber, nor am I a licensed minister. No, it seems that way, though. Like, how do we get out of this? How do we end the endless pressure that we're constantly under? Right? So I was asked to come here today to offer hope, not just to bring you all down. And so here's the hope. There is a way out of this. But it's only possible if you start to think of the work of government this way. If you stick with this analogy and start thinking of the plumbing of government, you'll start to see there's a way out of this mess. And it's simply this. When you tear up the floors in your government house and you rip out the walls and you discover your pipes, that's the moment you're going to see, I know how we get out of this jam. Because the reality is, our pipes in government look nothing like this. A customer doesn't come here, submit some forms, and then just flows quickly through to the other side. Right? They don't walk into our office and immediately come out with what they need. No, the work of government looks more and more like this. It's a kinked up, twisted, contorted, gummed up mess. Where somebody comes in here, they submit an application, it goes to this unit, then back to that unit, then back to the original person again, and 7 signatures later it's over here, then we've got to wait 30 days for whatever the statute said we had to wait for, and then has to get loaded into the database so that the phone center can answer questions. And what used to be simple is now this. Right? This is what the work of government looks like. Do you guys have any of these? Yeah. Kinked up, gummed up pipes. And if you work in a large agency, you're full of kinked up, gummed up pipes that feed into other kinked up, gummed up pipes, which are being constrained by other pipes that are kinked up. This is how we're trying to get water moving through government. It's a mess. So how do we fix it? The work of government is plumbing. We've got more water coming in than going out because our pipes look like this. How do we fix it? What do you think? What's the answer? Straighten it out. Straighten the pipes. Go back in, remove the kinks and twists and turns and everything else that is constraining our capacity to do good in this world. When you straighten the pipes, you speed the flow. When you speed the flow, more gets through, which is what you're trying to do. How do we serve more people with less resources? You have to get the water moving. Straighten the pipe, speed the flow, more gets done, and that's what we all want to do, is do more. Right? It's the same concept behind, if any of you garden, right? If you're out gardening and you're watering the plants and all of a sudden the water starts trickling out instead of flowing, what's the first thing you do? Yeah, what bush did I get it wrapped around? Right? You go figure out where's it kinked, you straighten out the hose, the water starts flowing. Right? Same concept. It's the same concept that the Army Corps of Engineers uses. All right? They do this with rivers. If they want water to remain in a community, they'll take a river and they will bend it. And when they bend it, it slows the water down. The water remains in a community. And vice versa. When they want to get things moving out of a community, they'll come in and actually straighten out the river. Speed the flow, more gets moving. And floods the people downstream. Different issue. That's a political issue. Same concept, though. Straighten the pipes, speed the flow, more gets done. Easy. Easy. It's not rocket surgery. So why aren't we doing it? Why isn't this the number one thing that we're working on in government? Because you'll notice when I asked you the question of, how do we fix this? None of you said, rip out the pipes and replace them with all new ones, which would be a technology solution, which we'll come back to. But why isn't this the number one thing we're working on? Why aren't we actively engaged in straightening out the pipes, fixing the plumbing, improving the processes of government? Because you don't see them. We don't see government this way. In fact, think about your own house. Do you know where the pipes are in your house back home? When do you discover your pipes? When they burst. Right, we don't know where our plumbing is. Right? I've never gone home to my wife and said, we really ought to look at our plumbing and make sure it's all routed correctly and that we don't have any wasted twists and turns. No. But the one day, look, honey, plumbing. We discover it when it bursts, which is exactly what happens to us in government. We discover that we have process issues. We discover that we have plumbing problems when it bursts. When all of a sudden everything goes haywire, customers are lined up out the door, we're getting yelled at, we're getting screamed at, or what's going on at the federal government right now, 24-hour news cycle coverage about why you can't make a website work. I mean, it burst. That thing burst. Right? We don't improve what we can't see. And we don't see the plumbing of government. We don't think of it this way, which is my mission. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. See the plumbing, and you'll see what the opportunities are. But we don't see it till it bursts, and by then it's too late. And in fact, in government, when the plumbing bursts, do we set about the hard work of fixing it? Or what do we fix before we fix the plumbing? Blame. Right? Pipe bursts, puddles everywhere, somebody must be held accountable. And before we fix the plumbing, we fix blame. Right? I think about, this. I think it was maybe four years ago, right around Christmas time, there was I was going to say gentleman, it's the wrong word, terrorist, totally wrong word, who was going to blow up a plane over Detroit. Do you guys remember this around Christmas time? He had snuck an incendiary device in his underpants. Right, a lot of us don't remember the story because, again, it was Christmas time and we're all, eggnog-fueled haze or whatever. But there was this guy, and so he sneaks a bomb device in his underpants, and the plane is flying over Detroit. And he proceeds to strip down and start lighting himself on fire. Now, across the aisle, there's another guy who sees this and goes, that's odd, right? And he proceeds to come across the aisle and pummel this guy with an inch of his life and saves Christmas for everybody. Amazing, right? This is a great story. Except, when this was over, they brought the head of Homeland Security out for a press conference. Again, a lot of us don't remember this because it was around Christmas time, but she comes out gloating and said, see? Do you guys remember what she said? The system worked. We got him. The system worked. So that's our system. We reorganized 9 federal departments, spent billions of dollars, and our system for catching people is, hey, if you see a guy lighting himself on fire, get him. I was a little incredulous. So was the media. And they proceeded to pummel her for a few days, right? And so she's getting beat on for a few days. And finally, the president comes out and has a press conference. And I'll never forget this press conference because, again, right in line with what we're talking about. He comes out, and the first thing the president said was, well, obviously, the system did not work. Okay, so he apologized for that. But what do you think the media wanted to know? Yeah. Who are you going to blame? Right? So there was this gentleman, there was a lead about him that to an embassy, and the embassy should have caught him, and he should have been on the no-fly list and never got on the plane. This shouldn't have happened. Who are you going to fire? And he's tried to explain things, and again, who are you going to fire? Who are you going to fire? Because this is our natural reaction to government. Something goes wrong, blame the people. Hold them accountable. Fire them. Do something, but you got to go after the people, which is what they're doing right now with the healthcare.gov website, right? Congressional inquiries. We got to get somebody. Somebody must pay for this. And I'll never forget the press conference, because the president was up there and he was explaining how somebody gets put on the no-fly list. Now, he wasn't up there holding a gas pipe, because he too would look like a bad prop comic, but he was trying to explain, somebody comes into an embassy and there's a lead and it gets put into a database, then it gets sent to another agency, and that agency reviews it, and a report is created, and then it gets translated and sent to another agency, and then 2 more databases later, and then an analyst, and then the airplane company, the airlines. And as he's describing the whole thing, I'm like, well, how do we catch anybody? The system was a mess. But the media didn't care about the system. They wanted to know who. And again, this is how we react to problems in government. The pipes burst, and we start blame storming. But we don't need to wait until they burst to have an impact. We've got to catch them before then. And the first key is to be able to see them, to see the work of government as pipes that we can fix. But when we don't, we go after the people. You can't improve what you can't see. The corollary to that is we focus all of our improvement attention on what we can see. And the most visible thing in government is you. So we spend more time and energy and effort trying to fix the people of government. Rather than the systems of government, we go after the people, because we can see them. Right? So we have all kinds of different initiatives. But the overall message of it is government would get better if you would get better. Right? Do you guys have any programs in your agencies that are geared this way? We want you more motivated. We want you happier. We want you to try harder. And it's driven by this belief that the problem with government is a people problem. And it's uniquely ours. Right? There's something wrong with us in government. All the slow, inefficient, customer-hating people in the world have all gravitated to one industry. Right? I mean, you were just walking around going, well, I'm in no hurry. I'm very expensive, and I hate people. Where can I ply my trade? State's hiring. Right? But isn't that the belief? That again, there's something wrong with you. And if we could fix you, then we'll fix government. So we have more and more things designed to do that. Like, well, let me ask you guys. Do you work in a pay-for-performance environment? Are any of your agencies pay for performance? So you guys are just pay for show up. Is that where? There's only 2 schools. There's pay for performance or pay for show up. You're in one or the other. So you guys are pay for show up. All right. But you've heard of pay for performance, right? What is the idea? Because it's a very popular program, or it was before the budget crisis. And then it was interesting because if you read Governing Magazine about all the progressive states and counties that implemented pay for performance, where they gave bonuses to employees based on meeting performance measures. Interestingly, when the budget crisis came, they took away all the bonus money. They couldn't pay it. What happened to the performance? Nothing. Didn't get worse. Just like it didn't get better. Right? There's absolutely no correlation. What is the assumption behind pay for performance? Right? What do you guys think? What's the assumption? We're going to test one out here today. All right. Who looks like a hard-working table? All right. I'll go with these guys. All right, most pay-for-performance programs, you know, it's where we take the employees and we come up with measurable goals. And if you meet those goals, the idea is that you get some kind of bonus money. All right? And if you don't meet them, then you don't get the bonus money or worse. But what do we assume when we do programs like that? Okay, people can change. Yeah, if you've been married or have kids, you know that's not going to work. That money is a motivator, right? Which is we've always been taught that. Money is a motivator, right? Which we'll see. In fact, if you look at the research on that, you'll find for public sector employees, money is like number 7 on the list of things that motivate us. Now, we're not going to turn it down. If you're going to give it to us, we'll spend it. But you don't go to work in the public sector to get rich, do you? If so, oops. No. We don't work in the public sector for money. Why do we come to work in government? Pride. To make a difference. To contribute. Why do you see these people, and I think you saw this in Hawaii as well, who made a fortune in the private sector in technology, retire very early and start trying to help government? Because it's missional. We want to make a difference. We want to make life better. We want a challenge. I mean, there's no bigger challenge than what we do in government, trying to deliver these vital services to people with very limited resources. All right, so there's these really strong motivators to work in government. Money's not it. But every time they try to motivate us, they keep coming back with money schemes, which again, we'll take it, but ain't going to change anything. What else are they assuming, though? What's the biggest assumption behind pay for performance? There's one, right? You're not currently performing. It starts with the assumption that you're not giving it your all. That all of you are withholding a certain level of effort. Right? You're only pedaling about 70% as hard as you could. And if they could just give us the right incentive, then I would give it my all. Isn't that true for most of you? Right? That's why most of you are on your BlackBerries right now as I'm talking. Look, I'd love to listen to what you got to say, but I got 12 deadlines. Yes. I mean, not giving it our all. But there's an even bigger assumption. And this is the one that always goes unchecked. It's the assumption that improved individual performance equals improved organizational performance. Right? That the way to make the organization better is to make you better. That's the assumption. Let's test that out. When I worked in Missouri, I was the deputy director of the Department of Revenue. So we had the tax agency and the DMVs all in one agency. Right, because one impossible to crack thing was, not enough, so we had both of them. One of the projects that we worked on that Alan mentioned in the introduction is we found a way to make the tax refunds go out 80% faster. So what used to take months in Missouri, you could now get in about 2 days. Okay? So it was pretty cool. But at the end of that, our state human resource agency came to us and said, Ken, you guys need to implement pay for performance. I said, okay, but I'm just curious. We're going 80% faster. How much more performance were you looking for? I said, well, you need to make sure your employees are motivated. They're going 80% faster. How much more motivation were you looking for? And then finally they said, would you just do it? And you guys know how that works. Like, yeah, we'll do it. So I want to show you what just do it looked like in that environment, okay? So I'm just going to take, in the real world, the tax process was 13 different silos, but I'll just take 4 for example's sake. So we're going to start here with Todd. So Todd's the first step in the process. And let's say Todd can do about 150 tax returns a day at his station. So he works on 150, sends them over. We've got Josette in her area. And Josette, she can do about 200 a day in her area. Got the capacity to do that, okay? All right. Then it goes over to, what's your name? To Kayla. Now, Kayla's work area is a little bit different. They have some different technology and policy constraints. And so in Kayla's area, they have the capacity of doing about 75 a day in their area. And then we go finally to, is it Malia? To Malia. And Malia's work area can do about 150 a day at their station. So that's the process. Now, how many tax refunds are we going to get out a day in this system? 75. Did y'all catch that? I know it's heavy math after lunch, but this pipe is spitting out 75 tax refunds per day. Now, here comes pay for performance. And the idea is we meet with each individual employee. We set a performance goal. If they meet it, we throw them some money. This is going to be awesome. Todd, you were at 150 a day before? I got a little money for you here. How much more do you think you can give up for the team this year?
Another 5.
5? Well, maybe it is a people problem. Another 50. Now we're talking. All right. I'll tell you what, you give me 50 more, I'll give you a 3% increase. Nice. It seems about fair. Now, Josette, you're not going to let Todd show you up, are you? I mean, how much more can you give up for the team? I figured. 50 more. This is awesome. All right, 3% increase for you. Kayla, here's the deal. You know that technology change we've been trying to make for you to help your work area? It's running a little bit behind. Not that that ever happens. And the policy change we've been trying to get through upstairs, they're kind of dragging their feet on it a little bit. So, look, I'm okay if you're okay at 75. Now, you won't get a raise, but you also won't get fired. Seem fair? I thought so. Yeah. Now, Malia, where were you at? You were at 150 before? Yeah. So, team player, how much more can you do for us? 200. Now, don't tell the other ones, but I'm going to give you 4%. This is amazing. See, all you have to do to get more performance is ask for it. That's what we were trying to prove. No. How many more tax refunds are we getting out of this system? None. Well, how many are we going to get total? 75. How's that possible? When we had performance measures, we have targets that are specific, measurable, achievable, whatever acronyms we're supposed to throw on it. We've got bonus money. We have 6-month feedback sessions where we go over our forms. How is it possible that I'm only getting 75 a day out? Because it's Kayla. Yes, so you do have a people problem. Work is a system. Work is a set of plumbing pipes. All of us work in these pipes. We work in these systems. Very few of us are an island where the performance is totally dependent on us. Most of us are in environments just like we described. So we measure it, we incentivize it, we throw money at it, whatever, and we still get 75 a day out. Because this process, this pipe, has a kink. That if we don't fix the process, all the stuff we do to individuals does not matter. Improving individual performance may not affect organizational performance at all. But if we improve system performance, we remove these constraints and obstacles, and then we also free up the capacity of our employees to make a bigger difference. We keep getting the order all wrong. It's not that people don't matter, but we've got to get the sequence right. How do we fix the system first? Right? So, try to share with you a quote from probably my favorite management thinker that sums this up, I think, the best. Peter Schultes said, all of the empowered, motivated, teamed up, self-directed, incentivized, accountable, re-engineered, and reinvented people you can muster cannot compensate for a dysfunctional system. When the system is functioning well, these things are all just foo-for-ah. I don't know what foo-for-ah means, but I don't think it's a good thing. When the system is not functioning well, these things are still only empty, meaningless twaddle. Ouch. But he's exactly right. I tried to put it more succinctly in my book, We Don't Make Widgets. Government is full of hardworking people trapped in dysfunctional systems, producing invisible things for people who often don't want them, on behalf of others that do, for reasons we can rarely articulate and hardly measure. Is that your guys' mission statement? It's not a capability problem. It's a capacity problem. It's not a people problem. It's a system problem. Let's get off the people And let's start focusing our people on fixing the systems, fixing the plumbing. To do that, we have to understand how it got this way. How did something that used to be so simple, so straight, so short, customers could get through with no issues, how did it get so kinked up, twisted, gummed up? How did we get this way? What do you think? What makes your processes so challenged? Used to take 5 minutes to do this. Used to take 2 days. Now it takes 2 months. Now it takes 12 months. Do you remember back when it used to take 3 weeks? Now it takes 3 years. What caused all that? What kinks your pipe? Legislators. Yeah. Legislators, attorneys. Well, I tried to sum up the problem with government in one picture, if I could. I tried to explain this to my private sector friends. Like, how does government get this way? For those of you that can't tell, this is a gentleman running with a pillow on his backside, which is our visual metaphor for the work of government. That is, the reason our processes look like this is one force, CYA. You guys know what CYA means, right? I don't have to define that for you. Right? That is, if you take any complex process that's full of twists and turns and kinks and whatever, and you put it under a microscope and you start to study the DNA of the process, and you look at the DNA of every process is the same. CYA. CYA is the fundamental building block of complexity. All right? Something goes wrong. Somebody gets kicked. And once you get kicked once, you're not going to get kicked twice. So you put in a little safeguard. Kink the pipe. Then something else goes wrong. We kink the pipe again. Something else goes wrong. Commission is formed. Action is taken. People are held accountable. 4 more kinks are put in the process. CYA after CYA after CYA. And 20 years later, this is what your process looks like. Any process that has not been examined for the last 10 years, 20 years, is full of these things, right? It's pretty simple how it goes. I mean, if you're going to walk through the history of how your agency got so complex. In the beginning, you probably had a person who did a job, right? So maybe forms came in and a person worked on it, right? And they would do it and everything was fine until one day more work came in than they could keep up with. So that person goes to management and says, I can't keep up anymore. There's too many applications. There's too many questions. There's too many contracts. Whatever it is your process is. I can't keep up. So management turns to a consultant. The consultant comes in, studies it, and says, you're right. There's way too much work for one person to be able to do. So rather than having 2 people do it, they take the job and they chop it up into little pieces. And we're going to have A do some of it, and B will do some of it, and C will do some of it. And now we need a D, a supervisor, to look over the whole thing. So what used to be a really simple task has now been chopped up into 3 different jobs with a supervisor, which is what most of your agencies look like, which by itself has got its own problems, which I talk about in the book. But here's where things go really haywire. One day something comes up missing. Right? A does some work, they hand it over to B, B does some work, they hand it over to C, D is looking over it, all good, until one day something's missing. So the supervisor goes to the unit A and says, hey, where is it? Now what's unit A going to say? It wasn't us, we gave it to B. Right? And B's like, wasn't us, we gave it to C. Poor C's got nowhere to go. I guess it was us. But then D says something they always say in this type of situation. I don't care who lost it, you find it, and never let it happen again. That one phrase, never let it happen again, is the source of all the complexity in your life. Because again, as soon as somebody tells you never let it happen again, we start building in safeguards. So from now on, if I'm Unit A, I go back to my work unit and say, look, B can no longer be trusted. Before we give them anything, we're going to take our documents and stack them in a pile of 100. And we're going to put a cover sheet on them with initials. So if something comes up missing, we know who to kick. Boom. So now we've got a cover sheet with initials. And we throw that over to B. Now B's going to start doing the work right away, right? They've got 100 items. They're going to start working on them right away. What's B going to do? Same thing. First, they've got to make sure A's not pulling a fast one on them. So they're going to go count and make sure all 100 are still there, right? And make sure A didn't give them 98 and take credit for 100. So they'll go through, track them all. And then when they're finished, they put another cover sheet on with another set of initials. And then it goes over to Unit C, and they do the same thing. So now we've got all these cover sheets, right? Well, then D comes along and says, I need a way of keeping track of the tracking sheet. So now we've got a TPS report that's generated that shows where all the things are in the queue, and then we start getting phone calls from people saying, what's taking so long? So now we've got to be able to find everybody inside all these piles. So now we build a database where everything gets entered so we know when somebody calls where everything is. But now it's taking so long, we're getting more phone calls. We can't even do the work anymore, but we're more and more phone calls. So we take people out of A, B, and C, and we create a phone center so they can answer calls about what's taking so long. Right? And then we build a new computer system that's going to allow us to manage all. Do you see where we're at today? That's the world we all live in today. We're in the world of TPS reports and tracking sheets and databases and phone centers, all of the stuff that's not the work anymore. Right? We're on what's called the crazy cycle. Because all of the stuff, if you start to study what most employees in government are doing, less than 50% of our time is spent actually doing our mission work, what we were hired to do. If I'm a social worker, how much of my time am I spending with families? It's less than 50% of the time. Where'd the other 50% go? All that stuff I just described. Tracking the work, being accountable for the work, answering questions about the work, reporting on the work. 50% of our time is about that, which robs us of our capacity to do great things. Right? And as soon as we start losing our capacity, we get behind, and once we get behind, we're on the crazy cycle. And the crazy cycle is this endless loop that we all live in, where, well, let me ask you, what happens to water when it gets stuck in a pipe? When water stops flowing and it just kind of sticks there, what happens to it? It backs up, and then what? Stagnates, and it stinks. The same is true with customers. When they get stuck in our pipe, they back up, they stagnate, and they start to stink. That is, they start banging on the pipe. Where am I? When am I getting out? How much longer? How much longer? So they start calling. They call us. So we have to take people that used to do the work off the work to answer phone calls, which means we have less people to do the work, which means, guess what? We get further behind, which means we get more phone calls. So we have to take more people off the job to answer the calls, which means we have less people to do the work, so we get further behind. Then our customers do us a favor and resend the application because they figure we lost it. So now we've got twice the work. Right? And we wake up one day, and we have just as many people answering phones about the work as we did doing the work. And in government, we keep working on the wrong end of the problem. We keep trying to find better ways of tracking the work, reporting the work, running the phone centers, doing things online, when the reality is, and the secret to how we fix government, is to go so fast, your customers have no time to bother you. Let me say that again. Because this is the part people usually don't believe me. How do we fix government? We have to go so fast, our customers have no time to bother us. Because the longer we take, the more calls we get, the more all that stuff I was just describing happens. The only way out of the capacity crunch that we live in is to get rid of all that work that's not the mission work. The tracking and the reporting, all that stuff that takes up 50% of our day. And get more bodies doing the actual work. The only way you can do that, though, is you have to go so fast your customers can't bother you. If we go back to that example I was talking about with Missouri and the tax refunds, what was intriguing about that job when I first went there, I started on April 15th. I figured these people have nothing better to do on April 15th. let's try to change all their business processes. It's very well received. But we had 2 buildings. One building was people that processed tax returns, so entered things in computers, made calculations, made decisions. Another building, just as big, just as many employees, answered phone calls. It was call centers. And guess what the call they got all the time was? Where's my refund? Right? That's it. This whole building of people answering calls about, where's my refund? Now, the IT solution, let's just do something online where people can look it up themselves and find out where their refund is trapped in the pipe. Well, that's one way of doing it. The other way is, you know what, if we go so fast, right, if we get refunds to people in 2 days, they'll never have time to call us. And if they never call us to say, where's my refund, we can take all those people that answer phone calls about where's my refund, put them to work in the actual processing center so we never get behind. And if we never get behind, there's no reason for them to ever call us to say, where's my refund? Do you get what I'm saying? The only way out of the crazy cycle is to straighten the pipe, to speed the flow, to shorten the path, however you want to look at it. It's the only way off. And in fact, it was funny in Missouri, we were so excited about the possibility of that. It's like, wow, if we do get them the refunds in 2 days, they'll never call us. So we had a big plan to redeploy our whole phone center and move those to other areas. And then when we went live with the process, we got the phone center statistics, and people were still calling us. I'm like, what is going on? Why are they bothering us? So we ran down to the phone center, and we put on the headset. It took about 5 phone calls to figure out what happened. So here's a little reenactment. Good morning, Missouri Department of Revenue. Yeah, I got this thing in the mail. Okay, describe it. Appears to be a check. Well, yeah, that's your refund. Can I cash it? That is, the process had gotten so fast, they thought we made a mistake. And they were afraid to cash the check because they figured we'd come back and get it with interest. But the next year, phone calls dropped through the floor. And that is the secret to dealing with our capacity issue. And again, it's all in the show, Extreme Home Makeover. It all comes back down to the lessons learned in that show. How do you build a home in 7 days? The reason I know so much about this is that I tried to build a house about 5 years ago. My wife and I moved to a new city. We were interviewing builders. One of the builders we met with was one of the guys that did the show. He had 3 different episodes. I'm like, if anybody can get my family in this house before school starts, it's this guy. So we sit down with him and say, Kevin, how long is this going to take? And he said, 9 months. Like, dude, I saw you on TV, man, 7 days. You know, we don't do them all in 7 days. But you see the difference. There's 7 days or 9 months. The work is still just 7 days. You can drag it out for as long as you want to. 3 months, 9 months, or in the case of my family, 14 months, but we're not going there today. But you know how that works in the real world, right? The plumber shows up, does a little bit of work, disappears for a couple weeks, comes back, does a little more work, then he really disappears, and you have to get a court order, hypothetically. And that's just the plumber. We haven't got the roofer and the concrete guy and all those pieces and parts that aren't managed. And you see all that, and you're like, wow, that's how it takes 14 months. But if you watch the TV show, the same work, exact same tasks, 7 days. It's not like they said 7 days, you don't get windows. We couldn't put windows in 7 days. No, you get windows, roofs. Everything is done well. You get 13 flat screen TVs. You get everything. The work is still being done. It's the space between the work that has changed. And that's the message here. How much faster can we go in government? I will tell you it's 80% faster. Every single one of your processes, 80% faster. Because here's the universal rule. Less than 5% of the time in a process is work actually happening. So 5% of the time that your customers are in your process is work actually occurring for that customer. So if I'm in procurement and I'm trying to get, a new piece of IT equipment, that takes pretty quick, right? I'm waiting and twisting and turning and everything else, but less than 5% of the time that I'm in there is anything happening to me. 95% of the time is lost time. If I'm applying for benefits or I'm trying to get my tax refund, whatever, the work time is 5% of the total time that the customer experiences. So our goal in government is not to go to employees and try to change how they do what they do. It's not the work that's the problem. The work is only 5% of the total customer experience. The waste is all the space between the work. So we don't have to tell employees to do things differently. We don't have to cut corners. We don't have to compromise on the vital mission work that we do. What we have to fix is the pipes that those people are stuck in. And again, you can see from this picture the size of the opportunity. Typical permitting processes, maybe 6 or 9 months long. But the actual work that is being done by engineers and people in those offices, it adds up to about 7 to 10 days. 2 days here, 4 hours there, all these little pieces and parts. The goal is to get the 6 to 9 months down to the 10 days, not to try to cut 10 days to 9 days. Again, same thing with whether we're talking about tax refunds, a hiring process, client benefits. Did any of you here, are you incurring any expenses for this trip that you'd like to get reimbursed for back when you get back to the office? How long is that going to take you guys? 2 weeks? Longer? 2 months? Ouch. Do you honestly think there's somebody toiling away in payroll for 2 straight months, trying to create your reimbursement check? Just ding, 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 ding. Holy smokes. This is pay. How much actual work do you suppose there is to create your reimbursement check? 5 minutes? 5 minutes? The goal is not to change the 5 minutes. But how does 5 minutes turn into 2 months? CYA. How do we get 2 months down to 5 minutes? And people are doing it across the country in agencies just like yours. It's a plumbing problem, not a people problem. It's a capacity problem, not a capability problem. What we need are more plumbers, which is where you come in. I said at the beginning, technology is not the answer. Here's why. All right? Technology is not the answer because technology is not the problem. Technology is not the reason why our processes have 8 handoffs and 4 different sign-offs and have been chopped up across 3 different departments. Right? We take our kinked up, twisted, gummed up pipes and we turn to our IT friends and we say, can you please fix this? And they look at our process and go, whew. You realize that there's 6 different people that sign off on this right here. Can we do something about that? No. Would you just automate that for us? All right. But you're going here and there's a report created here that's recreated over there and I don't understand why. Yeah, would you just automate that for us? But yeah, just automate it for us. And our IT friends say, okay, here you go. And they hand back the exact same process, only shinier. Because the problems with our plumbing are not IT problems. They're CYA problems. They're managerial problems. They're cultural problems. They're all those things we were describing before. IT didn't create those, and IT isn't going to fix those. Those are the things that we have to create in our business processes as our agency. We have to go in and straighten out the pipes. And when we straighten out the pipes and get all the time down, take out the 95% of the time that's lost, and get back to the work, then IT can take us to places we never imagined. Because they can focus then on helping us with the 5%, which is the work, right? But the 95%, that's our responsibility. One of the things that technology does for us is it makes work simpler. That's its gift. That's the magic of technology. It takes a task which used to be hard and it makes it easier. But again, those tasks, when you add them all up, it's less than 5% of the total time. So we're spending $50 million for a 50% chance at a 5% improvement. Again, the following comment was not sponsored by. $50 million for a 50% shot at a 5% improvement. What I'd rather you do is spend nothing more than the brains of your people who are working in the pipes, with your help facilitating them to help them straighten out the pipes. And then we get a 95% improvement that sticks, that lasts, that works. Technology's not the answer, but you folks are. And here's the reason why. And I'm doing a breakout session in the next part, and we can talk more about this if you're interested. But the questions always become, who should lead these initiatives in government? Who should be in charge of process improvement? Who should do the plumbing? Who should be our chief plumber? And the ideal solution is, well, it should be inside the agency, and the department head should care very deeply about it, and they should empower a work group to do this and that, and it never happens. But there is a group of people who works very hard on replacing the pipes of government, and that's our IT community. You analyze the work, you work with the business people on the work, you're trying to find different ways of doing the work. If we can turn you into plumbers, into change agents, who can dramatically change the processes, we can have a huge impact. It's not the ideal place for this, but it's the only place. And so hopefully, I've said some things that will encourage you, and you'll pick up a shovel and join the crew. And if not, that's cool too. If you're interested in learning more, like I said, we'll be in the breakout session later. Shameless plug, Governing and I work together on a book called Extreme Government Makeover, where we talk very specifically about how to do this, but even more specifically, what are the strategies to get rid of the 95% lost time? How do you take a 3-month process and turn it into 3 days? How do you build a house in 7 days? It's all in here, step by step. Examples, government examples, it's all there. So if you're interested, go to governing.com and you can order that. If you're encouraged in staying part of the debate, part of the conversation, and again, I hope you will, because I think the IT community offers us the best chance to create change agents in government. If you're interested in talking more, as Alan mentioned, we have publicgreat.org, which is a site built on the following premise. The work of government is noble. What you're doing is noble work. The people of government are amazing. It's not a people problem. But the systems of government are a mess. And with your help, we can make them great. Thanks for hanging with me over lunch. It's been an honor to work with you. Hope to see you this afternoon.
Thank you, Ken. So we're going to get you into a break and then get into the next sessions. We need to turn this room into a breakout room, so we're going to kick you out pretty quickly. We do have some of these books available. You can see Ken, as he said, and Doug Robinson in a breakout session in the next set on transformation. Just as a further plug for this book, just my own experience with this, I met a guy who worked for the Marin Water District in California. He was a friend of a friend, and he said, hey, I can talk to somebody about government and technology. That's cool. I thought I was the only one. I sent him a copy of the book. He read it. He ordered a dozen more. The entire executive team now uses this as their Bible to transform the Marin Water District in California. So it's been very useful. Again, thank you, Ken. We're going to take a break now. We start at 1:15.